Welcome to the Pathway. Today Chad continued to take us through Matthew 13, and we looked at count them, six parables from Jesus that just come back to back to back. And the main theme of all of these parables is the idea of gathering. And I think we're at a perfect time of the year to talk about gathering, because don't we do a whole lot of it coming up very soon? As you think about this time of year with football parties and Thanksgiving and Christmas, we gather a lot. There's nothing like just coming together with the people that you love, and God feels the same way. And that's what we saw in the parables. And I had two big takeaways from what Chad shared today. The first one is that God longs to gather us. That as Chad explained the parable of the hidden treasure in perhaps a way you had never considered, that we are the treasure, and that God gave up everything to gather us to himself. And I love that first thought, but the second takeaway for me, I think, is equally as profound, is that once we are gathered by God, is that then we get to gather other people as well. And Chad explained this parable of the wheat and the tares, and the idea that we don't have to be the ones that are making the calls on who's in or who's out. He used the phrase that we need to be more loving and less labeling, and I really love that. It made me think of one of my favorite Christian authors, a guy named Bob Goff. And he has a phrase where he says, hey, God doesn't need us to be umpires. He just wants us to be first base coaches. And as you think of that baseball analogy or softball analogy, if you ever had a first base coach, they are just the best, right? Like, they are just welcoming. They are calling you by name. They are giving you some direction. They are sending you somewhere or bringing you back. But overall, they are just encouragers. And I love that idea that God doesn't need us to be the umpires in the game. So as you think of these verses in chapter 13, would love for you this week to think about those two thoughts. And I wonder which you need most. Do you need to be reminded that you are a treasure, that God gave everything to gather to himself? Or do you need to be reminded that God sees everyone else in our lives in the very same way as treasures, and we can be a first base coach in their life, cheering them on, calling them by name, welcoming them and pointing them in some good directions. Hope you have a great week.